The Ed Sullivan Show is best remembered today as the place where the Beatles and Elvis broke big. Sullivan's most lasting contribution, however, may be the way he broke the color barrier in what was then a very black and white world. That story next from Sullivan's granddaughter, one of the producers behind a fascinating documentary. Hi there, I'm Bill Brio, and welcome to this podcast. These episodes feature conversations with the people who make the television we love. In that category for me, certainly, is the Ed Sullivan Show. I have childhood memories of gathering in the living room with my parents and watching, well, first The Wonderful World of Disney, and then at 8 p.m., Sullivan. And yeah, I'm old enough to remember seeing the Beatles conquer America in 1964. My dad's reaction, those kids need a haircut. So I was eager to see the new documentary, Sunday Best, The Untold Story of Ed Sullivan. It's now streaming on Netflix. Well, I loved it, and I was very glad it focused on Sullivan's colorblind casting, which was very unusual back in the early 60s and even before that. I mean, the series began all the way back in 1948. The Sullivan stage is where I first saw Stevie Wonder, the Jackson 5, James Brown, the Fifth Dimension, Dionne Warwick, too many other entertainers to list, including comedians like Richard Pryor. Best of all, Sullivan fully integrated his variety show in a way that truly amplified black music and culture. Days after I posted a review of the documentary, I got an email from Margo Precht Speciale, one of the producers of the feature, thanking me for the review. And yes, she is Ed Sullivan's granddaughter, and the daughter of Sullivan's longtime producer, Robert Precht, himself a pioneer of live television production. I asked her if she'd like to tell us more as a guest on this podcast, and it's my pleasure to introduce her now. Please welcome Margo Precht Speciale. I'm very pleased to be speaking with Margo Precht Speciale. Am I pronouncing your name properly, Margo?
Yes, you did a beautiful job.
We had I used to work for TV Guide Canada, and the listings editor was Lisette Speciale. And so that name is familiar, and even a TV link. You're one of the producers of this amazing, incredible special, this documentary. You can watch it now. It's streaming now on Netflix, and it's Sunday Best, the Untold Story of Ed Sullivan. And, I'd have to commend you because I just expected this would be another retrospective, another nostalgic look at some of the great acts. And those of us who were alive when it first was on the air will always enjoy that. But this documentary goes way beyond that. It's really a story it's a very timely story about race and understanding and diversity and this spirit of opening doors and treating everyone the same. It's just a lovely, lovely documentary. So thank you very much for making it.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
And as I think I mentioned, we've sent some notes back and forth. I was a youngster when, for the last half of the run of the show, I guess, and, had to go to bed when Topo Gigio came on at 8:30 and everything. But, it was just so, to see the Beatles, of course, that's one of my earliest memories, was something special. And, but also all these wonderful acts, that you just take for granted now. The Jackson 5, Michael's very, very young, little Stevie Wonder, making his debut at 13, I think, playing the harmonica. But this was just part of the Ed Sullivan Show, something that had been part of the show right from 1948, with Ed Sullivan, your grandfather, welcoming black entertainers, some that, audiences hadn't really seen much of on TV up till that point, right?
Correct.
Now, from what I understand, you've been working on this for quite a while. How long did it take for you to get this to the Netflix?
Well, from start to finish, and the idea originated with me about 10 years ago, honestly. And it just took a really long time to get all of the pieces aligned and to get, the message out. We originally were in the Tribeca Film Festival, and then it had been 2 years, and then Netflix has since picked us up. So we're thrilled about that. But yeah, it just took a really long time. There was COVID in there. There
Yeah.
were the strikes in Hollywood, and
Mm.
there were just a lot of bumps in the road.
And I should explain too that your father, Robert or Bob Precht, was I guess the showrunner, really, but a producer of the Ed Sullivan Show, right?
Yes, he was for 11 years, roughly, because I think he was official producer from 1960 to 1971. But before that, he was an associate producer on the show.
Right. So he would have been involved in booking acts as well, I'm
Yes.
sure. And
Yeah.
now, just talk a bit about your grandfather, his backstory. As mentioned in the documentary, he was a sports writer in New York. Later on, he was sort of covered Broadway,
Right.
and all the celebrities from there, and was someone who was hands-on, very involved. He was out and about. He was seen
He
at all
was a
the clubs.
producer. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
produced vaudeville shows. He had a very extensive contact book in the entertainment world. He just was very connected in that world even before television.
From what I understand, he was sort of like he and Walter Winchell were the guys who'd have the names in boldface, right, in their columns.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so as early as the late 20s, he was writing about discrimination in sport as he saw it. He was objecting to players not being allowed into championship games or certain schools, right?
Yep. I think you're referring to NYU and their matchup against Georgia, where NYU was going to bench their only black player when they were playing Georgia. And my grandfather stood out, in his paper, and just thought that it was absolutely horrible that they were doing that, and really blasted them publicly, and brought a lot of attention to that scenario that was happening. And it's something that meant something very deep to him. He always, was for the underdog, and he just believed in fairness and what was right.
Yeah, and to put it in context, I mean, this was a time when there were still minstrel shows.
Right.
It was in the 20s.
Yep.
So he was sticking his neck out, making
Big time. Yeah.
such a smart argument. Now, I mean, obviously, he was your grandfather. I was surprised that you were actually a child. You were around when Ed Sullivan was. I mean, because he died
Yeah.
quite a long time ago, about 50 years ago, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so you must have been very, very young when. Do you
I
have
was 8 years old. Yeah,
Okay,
I have some, childhood memories. My family was very close. We all lived in New York, and my dad, of course, was the producer of the show. And, it was almost like a family business. So my grandparents were around a lot when I was a child, and I would be in the city at the Delmonico where they lived, often. But, they're childhood memories. They're memories of him doing little magic tricks for me, or showing me how to, use a fork and a spoon with my spaghetti. And,
that's pretty good.
yeah, just little, yeah. But I really didn't know who he was. And honestly, I became a little bit embarrassed of his image when I got a little bit older, because people would make fun of him, and imitate his way that he would speak and his persona. So I really shied away from being Ed Sullivan's granddaughter. But it wasn't until, my mom passed away in 2014 and I started to dig a little bit deeper into my family. And I just learned there was a lot more to my grandfather's story that met the eye from what that image was or that caricature. And that he really did a lot for American culture.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll be back with Margo Speciale in just a moment.
Here on the Mountain of Entertainment, we take crime off the streets and bring it right into your living room. We're throwing the book at boredom with every episode of Matlock, Watson, Elsbeth, and the biggest crime lineup you've ever seen. You have the right to remain entertained.
Stream Paramount Plus from $6.99 a month.
You're gonna need backup here.
Paramount Plus.
Well, summer is here and the time is ripe for Christmas movies on TV. Yes, Christmas in July is back at Super Channel Heart and Home. They've scheduled a fan favorite Christmas movie every night in July, including the Jingle Bell Jubilee. Psyched about celebrating UFO Day? Well, look no further than Alien Corridors, a Super Channel Quest original which visits extraterrestrial hotspots. It premieres July 2nd. Think there's an urgent need for regulation before robots go on the rampage? Well, check out the Super Channel original Digital Tsunami, Big Tech, Big AI, Big Brother. It's coming at you July 17th. All this plus uncut commercial-free movies galore. This and every month on Super Channel, available via most cable providers across the country.
Those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end.
And once again, here's Margo. Just to go back to your childhood again, I was listening to a podcast you were on, which was really fun. There was a kid in your school who wanted Ed Sullivan's autograph, and you got up the courage to ask him for that, right?
Yeah.
Just tell that story.
Because I didn't, we were always told when we were younger, don't boast, don't bring attention to yourself that you're related to Ed Sullivan, your grandfather, because, people will treat you differently or whatever my parents were trying to pass on. And yeah, somebody had stolen a sled from me and wouldn't give it back until I got my grandfather's autograph for him. So it's kind of silly to think about now, but I remember being so horrified to have to ask my grandfather for an autograph for this bully.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool, actually, though, right? All of us wish we'd had that advantage to barter with, I guess, when our stuff got stolen. So really, you were not aware of the context of what Ed Sullivan brought into living rooms with this great casting ability until much later. So had you watched much? I guess everybody had seen the Beatles and Elvis kind of thing. Did you look beyond that at the old shows?
I had seen clips of the shows throughout the years, and I just honestly never had an appreciation of it until I was older. And the idea of Sunday Best really came to me after I had a conversation with Ambassador Shabazz, who was Malcolm X's daughter, at a film festival several years ago. And she spoke powerfully about how the Ed Sullivan Show meant so much to her family and others because it gave visibility to Black artists at a time when it was incredibly rare. So
Wow.
her words made, quite an impact on me hearing that from her. And I knew that the show was always culturally important, but it gave it a much deeper meaning to me.
I'm sorry, did you say this was Malcolm X's daughter or granddaughter? It's fascinating because, and I'm going to get to the interview you use on the doc with Patrick Watson, which is really curious. But Malcolm X was on a Canadian panel show in the mid 60s, like just maybe 4 months before he was assassinated. And it was a show, it was sort of like What's My Line? And it had a panel of these Canadian experts, Gordon Sinclair and the different people, and they didn't see the celebrity was behind them, and they had to guess who it was. And it was Malcolm X this week. And I've seen this. The CBC has a good library of clips, and it's fascinating because he is charming. He's really, really utterly charming. And all these four crusty newspaper men who were waiting to confront Malcolm X were just completely won over by him. Right. But it's another example of television being instructive in terms of prejudice or people's assumptions of who people are based on other information, just like your dad did by having everyone on TV. So that's pretty interesting. So you met Malcolm X's daughter, but also another family member from another star who was often a guest on Ed Sullivan, right?
You must be speaking of Suzanne Kay, who was Diane Carroll's.
Yeah.
Yes, I met her as well. And in fact, the time I met Ambassador Shabazz, she was with Suzanne Kay, who was Diane Carroll's daughter.
Wow.
So we just had this really great conversation about the show and how much it meant to both of them, really. And, later I came across an article that described my grandfather as a kind of hero in the Black press for using the platform to showcase Black talent. And that's when it all clicked. It was, having a conversation with these, very influential Black women who really knew the entertainment political, climate.
Yeah.
And then doing my own research and finding more and more evidence about this history that my grandfather had with the show. And I thought, wow, this just seems to be a story that I didn't even know about. So I don't think anybody else knows about it. My grandfather's memory was fading. If people remembered him, younger people, they would associate him with the Beatles or Elvis. And a lot of young people had no idea who Ed Sullivan was.
Yeah.
So,
amazing. When you had this great idea, then who was the big get? Was there a voice? You have many people are interviewed. Was Harry Belafonte someone who you just had to have?
Oh, that was huge. Yeah, that was our first interview with Harry Belafonte. And that, I think, dates back to 2016 or 2017 when we interviewed him.
It's interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, Margo, but his voice is still commenting on different documentaries, even though he died in 2023. So in some ways, it was fortunate you had this long period to make this because you were able to reach back to some folks who have passed away, right?
Yeah. That was just a very special interview. We could not get him to stop talking. And I know that his wife was in the audience while we were doing it, and she, kept telling us to wrap it up because he wouldn't. And she was worried about him because I think at the time he was definitely in his 90s. Yeah. So she just, didn't want him to go on and on forever. But she also commented, I heard from her just recently, a few days ago, that she watched the documentary and it was like visiting an old friend.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, she had really nice things to say. So she was very happy with it too.
Well, he's certainly an important voice. And there are others. What were there? Was there anyone you really were trying to get that you weren't able to?
Stevie Wonder.
Oh no! Yeah.
That's the one that comes to mind. We really wanted Stevie Wonder, and we were holding out for a long time. He actually had agreed to be interviewed, but the people on his marketing side, it's just we couldn't connect with them, even though he had agreed to do it. We could not connect and get it set up. So that was really disappointing. But recently he was at an event, which was a screening of Sunday Best at the Grammy Museum in LA.
Wow.
And he was in the audience. And afterwards, he stood up and spoke. And he spoke about the Ed Sullivan Show and what it meant to him, which was really special.
Wow. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's too bad somebody wasn't there with a phone camera who could have.
Oh, I have that. Yeah.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
Oh.
I have it. Yeah.
Maybe for the revised version of your documentary, then. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
You have two members of the Jackson Five.
Yes.
Tito and
Jackie,
right.
Yeah.
It was cool to see them.
Yeah.
Cool,
yeah.
but sobering because we're all getting older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Tito's since passed away.
Oh, my goodness, that's right. Yeah. So Dionne Warwick, of course, also.
Who's been amazing.
Yeah.
To this documentary. She's been doing an amazing job promoting it, and she just loved my grandfather and my dad, so much. She said that they made her feel special, and it was important for her to do this documentary, and he even helped promote it.
Did you learn, were you told things that really surprised you in doing these interviews? I know, you'd watch the shows and you did your own research, but what else might you have learned from any of the entertainers that survived?
How intentional my grandfather was in putting them on the show and giving them his time in terms of, bringing them over to shake their hands or talking to them backstage. And, he was able to make a connection with a lot of these artists that was beyond just having them on the show. Mm. And he had a special connection with people like Pearl Bailey and Diana Ross. And we go into his relationship with Bill Bojangles. And Louis Armstrong, he had a really close relation. My dad, too, they were in Spoleto, Italy, filming the show when Satchmo had a heart attack.
Oh.
And my dad was literally the one holding oxygen over him as they were getting him to the ambulance. So, and, my grandparents spent time with Louis Armstrong and his wife. And, it was just the relationships went beyond their appearances on the show, which I think shows a lot, too.
Wow. You mentioned they were in Italy. I know that was unusual back then. CBS traveled the show, didn't they? You took it.
Oh, yeah. They went to Russia.
Yes. Well, you got a Peabody for that, I think.
Yes, they did. Yeah. They did. They got a Peabody for that. And
of course, you went to Canada a few times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think during Expo 67. Fascinating shows to watch.
Footage of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's quite an operation to move that show. I mean, I imagine your dad must have really had to pull a few strings.
It was a big feat. I mean, I know they went to Alaska, they went to Ireland, they went to Italy, Russia, Portugal.
Wow.
And they took talent with them.
Yeah. I know. Incredible. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
We're in an age now where they're shutting down late night talk shows because they're too expensive It's hard to believe, the budget for the Ed Sullivan Show was you're bringing elephants in some weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
All the plate spinners. More memories of the Ed Sullivan Show after these messages. Time once again to speak with Emily Gagne at Hollywood Suite. Emily, my goodness, it's so great to see you. Now, I turn on Hollywood Suite and it looks totally new, totally different. What is going on?
We've done a little bit of a makeover.
Nice.
Bill. Some of our channels are just adjusting a little bit. We now have 70s plus, 80s and 90s combined, 2000s, and then 2010s plus. So same content, just a different organization.
Okay, well, that makes some sense. And congrats, it looks really cool. What have you got content-wise for us this summer?
We always have lots of great movies, but I'm really excited about the fact that we have a new series this summer called Hell Motel, which is from the creators of Slasher, if you're a fan of that franchise. This is a new thing from them, but it's a slasher kind of series in terms of the genre. It's about these true crime enthusiasts that go to a famous murder site. As you have it, more murders happen.
And you have one of our favorites on here at Brio TV, the podcast, starring in it, right?
Is that Eric McCormick?
It is, of course. Yes. He's done 2 episodes. So I'd love to see him. He's in Hell Motel. Awesome. He
sure is. He's a big star. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that the show is starting on Friday the 13th, Friday, June 13th.
Oh, I bet that's not an accident. So smartly programmed. Well done. Well, that's exciting. Congratulations. Hell Motel all month, all summer, I assume, on Hollywood Suite.
Thanks, Bill.
Now everybody sing, yeah!
And we're back. Now, I'm sure most people listening would know the Ed Sullivan Theater is in Manhattan. It's a landmark, of course. I don't know if it's on 50th or 51st, and I've been in it. I saw a taping of Stephen Colbert's show.
Yeah.
You, I understand, have visited and seen tapings there over the years, right?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
What's that like for you? Because to me, as someone who's covered TV, it was like going to Lourdes. It's like this shrine. There's a portrait of your dad I saw up on the wall.
Yeah.
And it's just when you look up the arches and everything, it's quite a beautiful theater.
Yeah.
But I guess you got to see the offices and the guts of the place, right?
Oh, yeah. It was really neat. A few years back, I went there. This is when I was working on the documentary, and I was able to go upstairs to where my grandfather's dressing room would have been and where the secretaries. I went with 2 of his secretaries, too. Wow. So they showed me around, like, this is where we did this. And we had, all the cameras here. Like, they knew everything. So for them, it was really a trip down memory lane. But I love seeing the special spots in the Ed Sullivan Theater where things really happened.
It was hard to see because when you were watching the show at home, you would see a close-up of Ed Sullivan, and then he would just go, "Here they are," and then the act. And I imagine he's standing in the wings most of the time, right? Not center stage.
Yeah, no, he was, off to the stage. They actually showed me where he would sit, and he also had a little stool that he always sat on and did his notes and would do all the editing for the acts and everything. So they showed me that as well, and I was able to picture him there. It was really neat.
Pretty cool. He was a pretty exacting editor, too, from what I understand. He had there was a Canadian comedy team, Wayne and Schuster, who I understand they were booked maybe more often than any other act. And but he might say to them, that afternoon, you better cut 4 minutes out here or 3 minutes or 7.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, that was my dad explained to me it was the routining, of the show. And a lot of people don't realize that my grandfather was the producer. My dad was the producer too, but my dad, who came from the Navy, always referred to my grandfather basically as the captain, and that he would be I forget what the
first mate.
Yeah, not the first mate, something higher, but the person who carried out all the things that the captain wanted to do. That was my dad's role.
I wish I knew my naval terms, but I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, my dad would be horrified.
Your dad went on to have quite a career before and after. I looked him up on IMDb. My goodness, so when you were growing up, he was very involved with many, many different award shows as well, right?
Yeah. I was so lucky because he would do these great award shows in LA, and I would be like 12 or 13 or 14, and I'd get to go.
Wow.
And, sit Golden Globes and People's Choice and, all these different shows. And I would get to be in the background and seated with all these celebrities that were really big at the time. So it was really neat. And he also was very involved in the Country Music Awards for many, many years.
Yeah.
They loved him. He did many shows for them.
And he produced Soupy Sales specials before and after the Ed Sullivan Show, I noticed. Do you have any memory of that? Or
only what he told me. I mean, I know he did a few projects with Soupy Sales. They were working on a pilot together at some point. And of course, he was on the Sullivan Show. He also was on another show that my dad did called Our Place, which was a CBS replacement show during the summer for Ed Sullivan. And that's that. I can't really tell you any Soupy Sales stories.
That's all right,
because I just don't have them.
Listen, it's enough we get the Ed Sullivan stories.
Yeah.
And I listened to that podcast. You have this wonderful story. I think your dad is from California originally, if I'm not mistaken, or at least he went to school there. And he met your mother, and when they were introduced by someone rather famous.
Yes.
Do you mind passing that story along?
Okay. My dad was at UCLA, and so was my mom at the time. My mom was very good friends with Elizabeth Taylor. And there was a contest for the sororities and the fraternities. It was called the Greatest Lover contest. And I guess the sororities had to vote on who they felt was the greatest lover of all the men in the fraternities. It wasn't, I think it was more based on looks or, charm, not, other things. But anyway, my dad won the contest, and the award for the contest was a date with Elizabeth Taylor to the junior prom. And at the time, Elizabeth Taylor, like I said, was very good friends with my mom, and my mom was at UCLA, and she first wanted my mom to check out my dad to make sure he wasn't some crazy, creep. And my mom went to go check my dad out, and my mom was very smitten by what she found. But Elizabeth Taylor, being shy, did not want to go on this date by herself. So she wanted my mom to tag along. And my mom and Elizabeth Taylor met my dad and another young man, and they went on a double date before the junior prom. And then they went out again for the junior prom. But that's where my parents fell in love. And
wow.
Yeah,
that's such a sweet story.
Yeah.
It's your dad could have been Liz's 9th or 10th husband.
Thank God that didn't happen, right?
He dodged that bullet.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Luckily, it was my mom because they were married for many, many years.
You must find it kind of interesting just to be part of this, legacy, I guess, that's so much intertwined with television and culture and for decades and decades. Do you think about that at all? Does it surprise you to run into other children of, grandchildren of that are working on this project that you share that legacy?
It's interesting because when I do run into other children or grandchildren of, people who were in the entertainment industry at one point and were very famous, we have this weird connection. We both, there's this kind of understanding, like, I gotcha. I know what that's like. And it's just not, I have to say, I feel like I grew up in a very happy, place with my family, but it was a little different, just being Ed Sullivan's granddaughter. I know I had a lot of privileges other people did not have. And I feel very lucky and fortunate, and I'm very grateful for it. But it's something that, not everybody, you can talk to, just anybody I meet here around where I live now, and right. They just don't necessarily get it.
I find it fascinating. I interviewed Jason Ritter a few weeks ago, and his dad, of course, John Ritter, but his grandfather was Tex Ritter.
Ritter, yeah.
And he said when he was working on shows in L.A. and he's on Matlock now, it's often the grip or the lighting guy is the third generation grip or lighting guy. It's quite an industry in L.A. and in Hollywood, and there's that connection. There's two things I want to ask about the special. One is there's a great interview with your grandfather, and it's conducted by Patrick Watson, who was very much on the scene here in Canada in the 60s and 70s as a TV host and interviewer. Where did you discover that? Do you remember where you happened upon that interview?
We had a great archival producer, Jim McDonald.
Okay.
And he actually found it on a broad search for the CBC, database.
They have a great archive. Yeah.
Yeah. And he just put in my grandfather's name, and he struck gold because honestly, that's one of the best interviews. My grandfather was very relaxed in it and very honest and just more like himself than the persona that you see. So yeah, that was a gem.
It's fascinating because Watson could be a bit of a devil. I've seen him interview. There's one where he's interviewing Orson Welles. It's almost like watching a bar fight.
Really?
But your grandfather, he just came across as very humble and proud of his achievements, but not braggy at all. Just he almost surprised that he had this level of fame through this show. And I just wondered watching that if there was a show called This Hour Has 7 Days, if it might have been part of that series. But it played out pretty well. The other thing I loved, I think this is a great innovation, is the use of AI to recreate Ed Sullivan's voice in his own words in telling his story on your documentary.
Yeah.
How did that evolve? Was this something that you thought of rather late into the making of the show, or?
No, not at all.
Wow.
Not at all. So again, this took 10 years. So probably around after 5 years or so, we were starting to think about who was going to narrate this, because we had already decided we were going to be using my grandfather's own writings to tell the story. And I had been listening to a podcast, and they were talking about this new technology that it was way before any of us knew about it, that they were able to recreate people's voice for people who actually had lost their voice through cancer or whatever it was, so that they could keep that piece of their identity. So before they were to lose their voice, they would take recordings, and then they were able to transfer all of this so they could respond to people using their voice. And when I heard about it, I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I wonder if we could use that to recreate my grandfather's voice and have him actually tell his own story.
Yeah.
And I really love that idea.
Oh.
I know a lot of people have issues with it, but for me to hear my grandfather tell his story, there was something very magical about that for me.
Yeah.
And
I don't have any problem with this. It's, his voice was very much a part of the connection to that show. It's, for me, Walt Disney's voice is the same way. When you actually hear him speak, it brings it all back if you were around then. And I've seen other documentaries. There's one now on World War II, the Battle of Britain, and Winston Churchill's voice is reproduced in the same way, him using his own words.
Yeah.
And literally giving speeches that he never gave, but based on things he had written. And,
Oh, I didn't realize there's something else. So when we were first going to come out with the documentary, when we thought we would, we, were worried about how the public would, take this technology, because it wasn't out there for all of us yet. And there was an Anthony Bourdain documentary that was criticized for using his voice. So that's when we decided to kind of put up that disclaimer in the beginning to let people know that we were doing that. But, we thought we were going to be one of the first documentaries out there that was using it. But then, because of all the delays and bumps in the road, we're part of the mainstream now with AI voices, I guess.
No, you're still kind of at the forefront. I have only seen it a couple of times, so good for you.
Yeah.
You've been very generous with your time. Just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Some of them are rather superficial. When you were a little girl, did you have a Topo Gigio doll?
I had something with Topo Gigio for my bathtub. I remember. Yeah, I remember that. But since then, since I've been an adult, I've been collecting Topo Gigio dolls.
Oh, wow.
And I have a collection, probably about 30 now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. A funny story about that is my kids, didn't know who Topo Gigio was. And I had this collection, and I put them on these shelves in our family room. And one of my daughters came out as like one that they were a preteen, came out into the family room and was like, "What's with the creepy mouse?"
That's funny.
It's like the creepy mouse.
That's
How
funny.
Can you say that? So
there's the title of your next documentary. What's with the creepy mouse? The Topo Gigio story. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun. Did your dad have any stories about, I know he actually went on to produce the Beatles at Shea Stadium, I think, right?
Yeah.
Did he have stories about them? Did he have their autographs? Did he have...
My dad wasn't like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't really impressed by talent. He was really there to do his job, and he took his job very seriously, and he stayed in the background. He never seemed starstruck to me when it came to anybody. But I do know that he felt that the Beatles at Shea was one of his greatest achievements.
Yeah.
That was a huge feat. And even later in his life, before he passed away, he told me that's one of the things he's most proud of is that production.
There was nothing like it up till that time. That was that stadium show. And your dad, sadly passed away, but not too long ago, Margo, right?
No.
He lived a good long life.
Yeah, he lived to 93.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, he had a great life. I miss him terribly.
I'm sure you must. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lastly, I guess, what do you think is going to happen to the Ed Sullivan Theater now? What would you like to see, go in there next?
What would I like to see?
A Broadway play, or, it could be.
It'd be great if Broadway would use it. I don't know if CBS is planning to sell it.
I don't know, yeah.
But I really hope it is a historical landmark. It's a beautiful theater with an amazing history. And it would be a shame if they were to, let it go or make room for something else there. I would hate to think about that.
Yeah, I hope it stays a TV shrine for sure, whatever goes in there. Looking through your credits, am I right in here that you worked on both, that you had a role to play with the Billy Joel documentary that's out now and also the Elvis one, right?
Yeah.
Those,
pardon?
They're both terrific. Those,
great.
Yeah.
No, I've, for the past several years, I've just been doing different kinds of archival. I've really been interested in research and archival clips and music and all of that from documentaries. And it's quite a feat to sometimes find these pieces that that you'll see in a documentary and nobody's seen it, but it's a complete gem. And I've just had the pleasure to be a part of that world, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, good for you. It must, though, boy, 10 years to pull this together must be daunting if you're looking at what's next. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Right now, I'm just, I continue with my archival production work, but I'm just enjoying this right now. I'm just enjoying that it's finally out. I, for a while, never thought it was going to see the light of day, that it was going to collect dust on some shelf somewhere, which made me feel really awful thinking about that. So the last few weeks with some of the reviews that we've had have been really good. And I just know how proud, my family is and how proud my grandfather would be and my parents that I am carrying on our family legacy in this way. So,
well, good for you.
Trying to enjoy it and just be grateful.
I'm sure they'd be very, very proud. My thanks again to Margo Speciale. Her wonderful documentary, Sunday Best, The Untold Story of Ed Sullivan, can be streamed now on demand on Netflix. Thanks as always to my Bob Precht, podcast producer Phil Hong. Let's really hear it for him. Kudos as well to the Crispy Critters, especially BJ Del Conte and Paul Boudra, as well as piano man Stephen Dudley, who performed the music heard on this podcast. Finally, thanks to you, listener. If you liked what you heard, please spread the word. I'm Bill Brio. Thanks for listening.